So, that said, they are completely, the Defense Department is completely on board with this. The State Department is also completely on board with this. Now it's convincing our Office of Management and Budget and Congress that this is also in the best interest of the United States. AFRICOM and SOUTHCOM, two combatant commands that are out there, one with obviously an Africa focus, one with Central and South American focus, both of which are transforming themselves. One's being built from the ground up, AFRICOM, the other one transforming themselves into an interagency organizations that are focused on, from the military perspective, on supporting U.S. government activities. Huge change, as you can imagine. I mean, in both cases, they will have, well, both have recently just been announced. They'll have two deputies. One will be a civilian deputy, military deputy, civilian deputy. In both cases, they will get rid of the joint staff designation. So J1, administration, J2, you know the 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll get rid of all those things, and they'll all be functional. We think, well, and in this whole process, maybe 5 to 8 years down the road, these organizations will have transformed themselves into a platform that allows the U.S. government to engage in activities throughout a given region as a whole of government versus stovepipe. Again, very easy to say. I would argue that the organization or reorganization of those staffs is probably the easiest thing to do. Lining the legislation up behind that to allow them to execute whatever policies they're going to execute is one of the bigger hurdles. And that's what our congressional liaison is working on. I talked about some of the challenges already. I mean, the lack of a unifying set of principles for a whole of government approach towards any of this environment. Reconstruction and stabilization just being one of them is a key hurdle, and it's something that I know Henrietta, our administrator, is focused on, and so is the Secretary of State and Defense. So we've got a limited amount of time to do this thing and get it up to Congress and get them to buy off on it. The acts that were talked about before, Lugar-Biden is out there. It's an act that has yet to be voted out of Congress. I think it passed the Senate, didn't pass the opposite. Passed the House, didn't pass the Senate. But it's one of those acts that if you read the thing, and you should if you haven't yet, it talks all about what we're talking about right here. How do you get to a whole of government approach to these very complex issues? The Building Partnership Capacity Act is something that DOD has recently put up to Congress. It is in the process of being negotiated right now. It's a recognition by Defense that they are in a unique position in Congress to get resources, or to argue for resources, and then transfer those resources to respective organizations in the U.S. government, agencies and departments, to allow them to build their capacity. The Section 1207 in Defense Authorization Act was very successful last year. The first year was not very successful. And we actually got almost $100 million transfer from DOD last year for whole of government activities in countries such as Mali, which is in the Trans-Sahel, Yemen, the Philippines, Indonesia. I mean, you guys know the countries that are out there that are these ungoverned or fragile states, and that's where these activities are all focused on. And the proposals I think, portend the future. Hopefully they do, because they are truly an interagency document that applies resources, the right resources at the right time and at the right place. Funding. I talked about funding before, but the fact that we have 19 foreign assistance accounts is a huge, monumental problem. And of course, each one of those accounts has a congressman or a senator and their committees who manage the oversight of those resources. Again, huge problem that that really takes almost all the efforts of an executive branch to engage Congress to allow us to use those funding streams constructively towards a whole of government approach. Staffing, I talked about our staffing before. We are inadequately staffed right now. Both the Secretary of State and our administrator are working aggressively with both OMB and the Senate, the Congress to get at this, but this is going to take some time. Even if we got the money, it would take some time to get there. And then lastly, and it's not insignificant, is lexicon. I heard it before, and it's a huge problem. It still is. The fact that we can't, when we get around the table, even when we do get around the table, in many cases can't talk constructively to each other because we, in many cases, don't understand where we are coming from, respectively. I spent my summer vacation out in Iraq helping with the stand-up of a new organization called the Office of Provincial Affairs. And I can tell you, as a military guy, as an ex-military guy, I found myself now wearing civilian clothes in a lot of meetings with people whom I knew who wore uniforms, and I kept telling myself, or asking myself, not out loud, did I really sound that stupid? But I kept asking myself the same thing over and over again, and I'd go after the meetings, go to my buddies and ask them, hey, do you understand what you just said and how that's perceived by someone not wearing a uniform? And they didn't. This is not because they're stupid people. We have to get at this lexicon issue, and I spend a lot of my time getting at this. And there's no answer. I don't have the answer. All right, I talked about legislative impediments. There's lots of them, and the Defense Department has done their analysis. We're in the process of doing our analysis to understand what they are. So collectively, the plan is that we can go up and address Congress as a 3D tripartite approach and talk to them about what they are not getting. So it's about not what's out there right now, these impediments, but really what is it that we as a government, we as a country are not achieving because of these impediments. So it's a risk analysis approach. The focus has got to be on prevention. We can no longer afford, and literally afford, both monetarily and human capital, to be reactive. We don't have the people, we don't have the brain power, and we don't have the money for this. So we have to get at the preventive side of it. And I think it's also much easier from almost every aspect. It's much easier to go to address the preventive side of it than it is. I'm not saying it's not complex, highly complex, but it's easier. So how do we do that? From USAID's perspective, what we do is we approach it from strategic, operational, tactical. I can only stay out of the military so long, but I still got the three. So on the strategic side, it's about, what I found out very quickly is, in the military, you could trace almost everything from the national security strategy, right? National security strategy, national military strategy, and you go through all these series of documents, and Joe Rifleman if you ask him what he's doing, his commander can tell you the reason why he's doing that. He can track it all the way back up. We don't have anything similar on this side of the river, nothing. In fact, we don't even have a national development strategy. So we are in the process of developing one. We have a draft already, and the concept is that if we get a national military or a national development strategy, something that's similar to the construct on the defense side, we establish these touch points throughout the year and staffs who talk to each other. So when we issue guidance on both sides of the river, development guidance on one side and theater security cooperation guidance on the other, they're mutually supportive. So when those things are then translated down to the country level, on the operational side, or actually, we don't have a construct at the operational level either on our side of the river. So we don't have a combatant command. We have assistant secretaries or assistant administrators. So from that level, we need to develop a construct that allows those two organizations to be mutually supportive, at least talk the same language in terms of their engagement strategy.